So Mike, it's been a couple of years since we partnered together as sponsors with you with Silicon Valley Insurance Accelerator. And when we first started, the whole concept about InsurTech was just the new hot word. It's been a really amazing kind of journey and a true renaissance in the insurance industry. And as I reflect back on it, I think about the research that we've done where we talk about the trends around people, technology, and market boundaries, and the implications of that to a disruption model where we've moved from the industrial age to the information age, and now we're in the digital age. And as I think about the digital age and what does it mean to be a digital insurer in that digital age, we've really kind of changed our thinking over these last 2 years for that as well.
I think a couple changes that have occurred. I think as we started out, there was a lot of buzz around the InsurTechs. We're setting out to build out full stack insurance companies and basically take the industry that way. I think the change we've seen now is we're now starting to see InsurTechs that are really focused on how do we help the insurance companies optimize their overall operations as well as their customer engagement. I think the digital insurer, when we started out, that wasn't quite a term yet. But it really meant for many of them to get, mobile first, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what's happened to that definition since then is what we've really said is becoming a digital insurer requires thinking about the world we're in, the risks associated with that, and how we bring value to that as an insurance provider very, very differently. So it's dramatically changed from a focus on mobile applications to how do we rethink our role in a world that's gone digital?
From a Majesco standpoint, we really aligned to that in that we really believe that the existing business today really serves the customers that have bought your products and services over probably the last number of decades. But that's really a different generational group than what we have coming up. And so the business of the past, which was really primarily built around business models, products, services, processes, engagement practices that were really for the baby boomer generation, the silent generation, and maybe a little bit of the Gen X generation. But today's millennial and Gen Z in particular generations have a completely different expectation around digital. They were born digital, they grew up digital, and they have everything kind of engaging with them. The vision of Steve Jobs has really kind of come to light across every industry that one nugget of the launch of the smartphone has completely disrupted and transformed every industry. And you've got some interesting insight in that aspect.
So I started out my career very early on with one of the first computer stores in the United States. Not too long after I did that, I got a call from Apple, and they said, "Do you know you're selling more apples or per capita than anybody else in the United States?" And I said, "No." So they invited me out, and I ended up going to work for Apple, and then ultimately managed to piss Steve off, and ended up going to work for him because of that. So a lot of insight into how he thought about the future, how he pieced together the framework of technology that was going to enable the future we're now a part of. And he very much thought in systems, and he thought in ecosystems. And I think that innovation within the context of those ecosystems, building those ecosystems, is now starting to take root in the industry we're now a part of.
And I think what's interesting too about his view that you and I have talked about is that similar to what we're seeing in the industry, that we've got existing business models and systems that were built for a different generation in a different era. Today's business models have to really support an on-demand world, a sharing economy, a different set of demographics, and because of that, you can't really place those needs on top of a old traditional type of technology. It really demands something completely different that is built from the ground up in a different kind of architecture, microservices, and born in the cloud instead of, we'll just deploy in the cloud, and many other aspects that really is where I see, and I think you do too, that the industry are seeing these InsurTechs the lemonades, the troves, the slices, the Guevaras, the Frenchurans, they're all experiencing and experimenting with different technologies and different business models that really could be the real disruptor of the industry.
And I think the other thing that's true is that many of them are not focused on the industry today or the risk models of today. They're really moving their pointer forward into what the risk models of the future are going to be. I think they are living in a world where they're cognizant of the megatrends that are impacting our industry, all the way from the economic shift from U.S. being center of the economic universe to China being center of that, to the technology that's flowing throughout industries, to basically how those industries are going to change and reshape, and how that's going to change the needs of those industries. And so I think in addition to that, they are also living in this next generation economy that we're heading towards. You know, I live in Silicon Valley, so the gig economy is there. The whole culture around optimizing the world's resources lives there. There's an app for that economy lives there. These people live this day in and day out. And those are the people that are basically founding and driving these new insurtechs forward. I think what we're starting to see is a realization among the insurance companies that there's not just a threat there, there's a tremendous amount of value to them. And I think what we're starting to see is the DNA of the traditional insurers start to merge with the insurtech companies as they start to reach out, engage, and create a dialogue with each other.
Yeah. Today's period of time is much different because we've got more data and more technology and more innovation going on than we've ever seen before. And it has accelerated the pace of change and the pace of potential growth. And so that is not unfounded. I think the interesting thing is I was told by another individual that said, actually, they expect to see a $25 or $30 billion insurer, not necessarily in the U.S., but probably over in
China.
some other geography, just because of the growth potential there. And I think that just is mind-boggling for some insurance executives to get their heads around that something could actually grow that rapidly to meet what I say are unmet or unserved needs in the marketplace.
I think what a lot of traditional insurers underestimate is the power of the platforms that we're building. So it starts with internet, then we go to mobile, and now we're starting to see platforms focus around artificial intelligence, the ability to bring lots of data together in different ways. Those become multipliers, and they become accelerators for innovation, because now instead of trying to build everything the full stack yourself, you can leverage the work that's been done by everybody else. And these platforms have global reach instantly. You know, we can communicate to the world instantly and deploy products out to the world instantly. And I think, particularly in these economies like China, we're seeing an increase in the middle income family. Those have become a huge buying power, and many of those are uninsured today. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that insurance company come out of that. But I think the ability to stand this technology up and put those next generation products is accelerating at a pace that most people don't understand, and they don't also understand the impact, because once you've got that kind of buying power or that kind of motive force coming out of those, they are going to look next to the biggest homogeneous market other than theirs. That's going to be here.
We actually have decomposed now the different models that are actually emerging in the industry with their different kinds of products, the different kinds of features. You know, do you want to pay with your mobile phone? Do you want to save the money after you go to a Starbucks and apply that towards your payment for your insurance? All kinds of different aspects. And what is fascinating is the gap actually between the silent and baby boomer generation and the millennial Gen Z generation is pretty significant in a number of these areas. And I think there's something like 25 different attributes in one area, and of those 25 attributes, nearly 80 to 90% of the millennials and Gen Zs would very definitely probably embrace and engage in that. And I think what that really highlights is this whole concept of the pace of change, and that we all hear about it, we all understand it, but very few are doing much about it. And we kind of call that the knowing doing gap.
The other impact that the millennials are having is, one, they're going to work, right? And they're working in these companies, and they're rising in a position within those companies. But not only that, when you start to look at the small to medium business marketplace, you'd be surprised how many of these millennials have businesses on the side. You'd be surprised how many, how the ratio of the age in who owns these small businesses is starting to change. It's this newer generation, and their expectations are very clear, right? And the risks that we're going to start to see propagate as these industry changes occur, and particularly at the small business level, are very interspersed with these guys' personal lives. And I think that change is also going to drive new opportunities for the marketplace, and the insurers who aren't paying attention to that are going to lose that new market.
I think what's interesting, when I got involved in innovation years ago, it was first in process re-engineering, when we were all process re-engineering inside of our companies. But probably 4, 5, 6 years ago, we all were setting up innovation teams inside our companies. And a lot of that still was really looking to apply technology, but maybe it was really more process improvement and optimization. I think we're finally moving into real innovation, where it's really thinking outside the box. It's considering what a product is really defined as. It's considering the technologies that can be embedded, all of that.
Well, I think the movement that we're seeing is an appreciation that they have to start thinking outside of the insurance product. They have to start thinking about who that customer is, what the lifestyle is that they're engaged in, and we've talked a little bit about this, what the micro journeys they're on as they're impacted by changes in their life, whether it's, getting married, having a child, being in an accident, having their home be destroyed, or having goods stolen. Really kind of focusing on those micro journeys and really understanding how do we bring value across that spectrum. So I think those are some of the changes that we're seeing insurers become cognizant of now, and really trying to say, how do we start to create value, not just by the insurance product, but by the company we keep, i.e. the other value-added services that we bring in to help make the risk that they face more transparent, make their options for addressing that risk more transparent, and then working with value-added services to prevent or to predict, prevent, mitigate, and recover from loss.
Yeah.
I think that's, so those are the business models we see starting to take hold, and they're kind of moving from the viewpoint of the insurtech startups into the mainstream insurance companies, at least the more forward-thinking ones that we're working with.
So I've seen this shift of real insurance companies who are really looking at strategically, where is our future going to be? And it's got to be in a growth strategy. And in those growth strategies, they're looking at what are all the levers we can kind of pull in a growth strategy. So I know that in some of our research, it was like a multi-channel world. It's maybe 3 to 4 times, growth could actually accelerate with new products, a 3 to 4 times kind of growth. But a new business model was like 17 times growth, versus just replacing your legacy systems was pretty much even, 1.5. You're just kind of taking one thing out and replacing another, but you really haven't changed anything. Now that's necessary to manage your current business, but if you're really going to look at growth strategies, you got to think differently, like you're talking about. And I think some of the interesting products that people still are having a hard time to grasp is the microinsurance, is the on-demand insurance. Are those really products? And I think that those are real products, because over a period of time, they all get bundled together in an experience that continues to kind of build going forward.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of insurers, are, as they look at some of these new products, it's very easy to poo-poo them because they don't have the big dollars yet. But the net is, what we're doing is investing in a market that is going to grow. I mean, all you have to do is look at the trends, the requirements, the expectations of the buyer that we're trying to get to, right? And the way the industry is changing, and say, those are the growth areas. Those are where the major opportunities are. And if you're not investing in those, you're going to get left behind. You're going to be left in a product that has now been commoditized, right? You will be left in a model that says, basically your job is to provide capacity, right? At whatever price point the person who has access to those customers tells you that you need to provide that capacity for, right? And I think the insurer who wants to basically drive growth and profit has to look at new business models.
We've got a lot of new insurers, the lemonade slices, troves of the world, and a lot of them, with the new products and the way that they want to have a different customer experience, they scanned the market and they didn't really find solutions out in the market that would really fit, what they needed to do, because the existing solutions in the market were built for a different age. Part of that investment has to be with us as solution providers of the industry. Whatever your solutions are, how are you adapting and shifting to be able to support that next generation of products and insurance companies and everything else?
I'm glad you said that, because our belief is that it is incumbent upon the vendors who support the insurance market to help them make this transition. And that's why I love the work that you guys are doing, because you said very clearly, as we've said, there is no one company that can out-innovate this ecosystem that's coming out. You just can't do it. So what you have to do is figure out, from a business standpoint and from a technology standpoint, how do I help my customers? If you're a core systems provider, how do I help my customers go through this transformation? How do I help them tap into this new opportunity? And unless you're supporting that ecosystem, both technologically and from a business model standpoint, you as a vendor are going to get left behind, because they cannot afford to wait for you to get there. They will find someone who can help them get there, because their life depends on it.
We call it kind of the race to the future. There's this race happening. Not everybody has really decided to join the race yet. They don't even realize a race is kind of going on. It's that knowing-doing gap. But it is a race to the future. And the really, I think, telling point is that in the past we could be a fast follower. We'll let the leaders kind of take the lead, and we'll be a fast follower. But with the speed of change, the amount of technologies, the different demographics, the convergence of all of these different factors of the megatrends you talk about, what we talk about, that gap is growing wider and wider, that even being a fast follower, you may not be able to have time or resources to actually close that gap. That it's going to be a whole different generation of leaders who really are going to be able to define change for the rest of the industry, rather than letting somebody else define it for them. So with that, what do you recommend? What do you recommend for insurers?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to kind of click on what you said. I think the world of fast followers is going to be the world of dead followers. I think that, and that's why you see a lot of the major insurance companies are setting up innovation outposts out in Silicon Valley. They're not waiting for those technology providers to come to them and say, here's a total business case for you, for you as a company. What they're doing is they're trying to learn that technology. They're trying to explain to those technology providers what their needs are and opportunities are. So the net is that they are, by that engagement, they are forming the future of insurance. And so our belief is that if you're not part of that dialogue, you lose. So you can't win a race that you haven't decided to join, right? You just can't do it. And so I think for us, it's like, make the pilgrimage, get out to Silicon Valley, let us help introduce you to what's going on, to who the key players are, to the people who've made a commitment to help you innovate. Not the people who are kind of waiting to see what you want to do, but people who've, taken a proactive stance that says, we're going to help you move your ball forward. So I think to us, being able to tap into an innovation ecosystem that you can create value in and derive value from by engaging in the conversation, by engaging in proof of concepts, in working collaboratively together to kind of figure this out, that's the people that are going to win. The people that are going to lose are the people that decided they can wait to see how everybody else runs the race. It's not going to work.
So it's going to be fun, Mike, to see in 2 years where together in our work together, where we can help lead the rest of the industry and where the industry will be in 2 years. It's going to be an exciting time.
And I think becoming part of that community, becoming part of that dialogue, putting your resources behind that, helping your people who are interested and excited about doing that as an insurer, getting them in that mix, that's going to help you form the culture that it's going to take to become a digital competitor.